Hi everyone, this is my first video and I thought I would make one on the attachment point of a sling to your rifle. So when we do this, you can see that there are a couple different methods, right? We have the HK clip, we have the quick release, this one's a mag pull. This is I think the most common choice people would use for a attachment point. Stocks are built with it. Even my rifle has one made in, and they work. Although I've heard a lot of people complain about failures. I actually kind of hate them because you have to get your finger deep in there, and of course that makes sense, right? Because you gotta, you don't want people to accidentally release it, but I don't love them. And these HK clips, my understanding is they warp a lot. People have to tape them up. Like, I don't think, and this is from like people who are operators, and I'm not an operator. I'm just some middle-aged guy making a stupid video. So from that perspective, do what you want. But I started messing around because I have too much time on my hands. Now, a lot of people, they then say, well, go old school, go paracord. And I did that for a long time. And I tried out the Edgar Sherman Designs clip to kind of keep it clean on the end of my strap. Then I 3D printed my own version that had a built-in tri-glide. This is just a draft version. I haven't shoved the knot in there into the slot. And, the problem is, like, to get a secure knot, you have two choices. You can splice a cord, and that requires some special tools. Or you can tie in a knot like this. And I'm still working on this design. I think what I might do is actually just use the knot itself as the middle bar in a tri-glide and see if that works better. You get a nice little paracord loop. This one I think is too long for me. I actually like it really short. So that's a little bit of a pain to tie, but it works. And I used this for a long time. I just strapped this in and called it good. But lately I've been trying out a different method, and I wanted to share that out and see what people think. Like I said, I'm not in the forces. This isn't seeing hard use, but I think it worked out pretty well. And what I did is I said, look, I don't really love paracord, to be honest. It's not that heat proof. It's kind of floppy and annoying. It frays over time pretty quickly. And I don't know, I just didn't really, and it's actually the floppiness is what really bothered me. So I decided to make one out of this nylon covered wire. This is actually just an old jump rope cord, but you can get tons of this stuff. It's super cheap. Just go to the hardware store and buy as much as you need. But for this purpose, I don't think you need a lot. So what you do is take a length, and I'm just eyeballing it here, but think of it this way. You're going to want to make a loop, and we're going to want some overlap here for about, well, an inch or so. So, let's say I want the loop to be, like I said, I like a small loop. So I'm going to make it this big. So I'm just going to cut it right here. This is just all eyeballs. You take a cutter. I cut it at an angle slightly because you'll see why, but fundamentally it makes it a little easier to work with. And that went flying. Let me pull that back in. Now I'm bumping my camera. Okay. Then what we got are these little crimps. And these are also super cheap. And I'll link everything below. I just bought cheap Amazon stuff. Who cares? And you're going to feed this through. And that's why I did the angle. It just makes it a little easier to feed through. And you're going to do another one. So you're going to have two. Okay. And then what I think we're going to do here, just for my own purposes, is I also want to put a little heat shrink on top. Now, you can put a little heat shrink on top. Actually, on this loop, I'm not going to bother. But I'm going to paint these later. I just want it to be all black and not have little shiny silver bits. I'm trying to be all tactical, so can't have all little shiny bits that are gonna give away my position when I'm LARPing. So here we go. We got this guy. And what we want them to do is we'll keep them on the end here like this. Now, if you're gonna do shrink wrap or heat wrap, heat shrink, you're gonna cut them so that they're a little longer than each piece and have two, right? Because you want to cover these things up. So, you just make sure it'll fit over. And I'll show you one that has heat shrink on it later. So we got this guy. Now we're going to feed it through. And we just kind of feed it. Maybe if you're dumb like me, it doesn't go through very easily, but there we go. And then let's feed it through the other one, and then we'll do some adjustments. Okay. Want them nice and flat. Now let's grab our ruler. Here's a ruler. Oh, whoa, that's way more than an inch. We don't need more than an inch because the end of my sling strap is an inch. So we need about 1 1/8 inches. And that'll cover for even a little bit of heat shrink invading into that space. Still too long, so we'll just pull it even further back. Not a problem, just a little bit of muscle, a little bit of pulling here. Okay, now we're at about 1 inch, a little under, but I'm going to pull this over because I'm lazy and I don't want to bother cutting the wire really close to here, and I want to tuck these in just at the very end. See what I mean? Like, I don't know if you can see that very well, but the end's just right there. Let's see how we look. This looks pretty good. Okay, now we got to 1, 2. They're overlapped. Nice little loop. This might be even a little bigger than I like, but yeah, whatever. Like I said, I like them really tight. Then we got our crimper thing. Again, this came in the same kit as these crimps, so it's super cheap. And I'm just going to crank down. Let me get it straight just to be a little 1, 2, 3, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Oh, that's tight and nice. And look at that nice little mark in there. I should have been more centered because, again, OCD, but whatever. I already made like 20 of these, so. Okay. And crimp, crimp, crimp. Ah, that's nice and tight. All right, look at that baby. Think this is gonna come apart? I don't think so. Okay, so now we have a little loop. What are we gonna do with it? We're gonna put it on the end of our strap. And here's what we got here, right? Got a strap. Oh, I forgot a tri-glide. Definitely need a tri-glide. Let me go grab one. It'll be a jump cut. Okay, here's a tri-glide. This one's just 3D printed. I actually used a real one on my other ones, but I just happen to have this sitting around. Again, this is me half-assing a bit. And so what you can do is feed that tri-glide over the end of the strap, like so, right? It's gonna dumble back, so twice. So let's give it a little length. I like to have about that much maybe. See, that way when it's folded over. Now, once you're sure you're happy, I'm gonna take, like I'm planning on doing, I'm gonna take out that tri-glide and redo this and sew it down. Okay, so we got our loop. Just gonna feed it in between these two. That's why we have that inch gap in there. And the reason why we do this is so that the loop stays in place, right? Fundamentally, I could have used like an aircraft, those little key ring things that they sell at next to the hardware store or wherever, where they're just wire, coated wire and a little screw on thing. And then you could just, like, if you're worried about it, crimp that thing so that it's locked. But then it'll move around on your cord. And yeah, you could, make buckles and other crap to keep it in place. But, you just kind of end up with too much crap. So this is relatively minimal. So now I'm just going to feed it back through the tri-glide. One side, then the other. There we go. And then You know, I left just enough to feed it back one more time. This is a bit of a pain. It might be a little short, but you get the idea. And that's just so I don't have a little flappy end on there mostly. This is like, so this is on there. And what's nice is it's going to stay in position. Now, if I had the heat shrink on there, I'd have just taken it over and heat shrunk it over these little silver parts just to cover them up and make them all look all black. You could, of course, you can't use a large one because you're going to cover up your little slot for the strap there. But now you're ready to hook it on. Now, people are going to be like, well, what do I hook this on to? Because I can't do a cow's hitch or some other kind of knot with this style. Well, you could, right? You first hitch this on, and then you attach the strap. That is definitely an option. But what I do is, and I'll link to this also, I use a paracord QD, which is made by a company called 100 Concepts. And they are great. Like, you just hook them on and you pull them off. It's a nice little like M-lock carabiner, and it works great. So that's it. That's like my attachment point for a strap. Let me know what you think. I'm not sure it's the most, the coolest thing in the world, but I just thought it was a little bit unique, and I hadn't seen people do this, so I thought I'd share it. Thanks.